All right, welcome. This is the I Shoulda Did More Reading podcast. I shoulda did more reading, not eating. I've done enough eating. I shoulda did more reading podcast. You can get us at IShouldaDidMoreReading.com, although I think I screwed that thing up 2 days ago and it wasn't working. But so look and find us at iTunes and on YouTube. I Shoulda Did More Reading, and if you could subscribe, that would be great because we have a pathetic small amount of subscribers so far. So I want to introduce you to Doug Goudie, a.k.a. VB, and VB is a longtime radio veteran. I guess for radio, actually, you're not a long... I guess Jim Bohannon's a long time, considering. But I get... Well, not too many people have gigs anymore, so you're certainly... you're one of the lucky ones. And works for WRKO currently, and the morning show with Kim and VB. And has worked in TV at Fox 25 in Boston. And then before that was probably best known, maybe still probably best known as the producer for the Howie Carr Show, when Howie broke through and really dominated in the 90s, and then still has never really stopped dominating. Phoebe, how are you?
Good. A lot of people don't know this. Also a noted author. And the reason why this podcast is called what it is because you got through maybe a chapter and a half of my book.
Yeah, I did.
You should have did more reading.
I should have.
What I'm telling you.
That is totally.
You put that down in a hurry and said, I'll get back to that another time.
The book is Ack in Ashes.
It
A-C-K
is,
in Ashes. And Ack is a derivative for Nantucket. Which
it's the airport
fire.
Letters, yes. Little Tom Nevers Airport.
So we did bring our kids here to the studio today, so we will be interrupted several times.
Yes, I think
the situation
we will.
is not tenable.
I'm expecting the fire alarm to go off quickly. They're in another room currently.
All right, so you're from Western Massachusetts.
No, I'm from Central Massachusetts.
Petersham is Central Massachusetts?
Petersham, thank you. There's no sham in Petersham. Yeah, that would be Central Mass. Western Mass would be like North Adams.
Okay.
Anything east of Springfield is not Western Mass. I don't know why people don't know where the delineation point is.
Well, you're west of Worcester, right?
I'm sort of north of Worcester, yeah.
Well, you're out where nobody has an excuse to go to. That's what I consider that.
Fine, yeah, but it's central. Just
nice looking town, though.
Clear on. It's a great town. Love it.
And how many of you siblings?
I have 8 brothers and sisters. I'm the 8th of 9.
That is not true. Is that true?
Yeah.
Jesus. I didn't know that.
Kathy, Colleen, Stephen, Michael, Sean, Brian, Douglas, Kara. I think I got them.
Wow, I had no idea. I just thought it was you and maybe one other brother or maybe 2 other brothers. I could tell you had brothers because of your fighting tactics.
Yeah, no, I'm the last of the boys. There were 6 boys and 3 girls. So, yeah. A lot of why I am is because of what they are. Because I'm either going to be that or I'm definitely not going to be that. And you've learned from them,
So, and you parents together when you were growing up?
No. My oldest brother is my father.
Really?
Yeah, basically.
So no dad in the house?
He was there till I was 5.
Did he die or just leave?
No. He said he had 7 kids more than he needed to. So I don't think he could deal with it very well. He said, that's an interesting door. You should probably walk through it at this point. So that was that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
Not really. It worked out fine.
Yeah. Well, I guess
life is what it is. It worked out fine. My oldest brother, we always bust his chops about it. But yeah, well, we got it, Dad. We got it, Dad, kind of thing. He had a dad or a father.
Right.
But yeah, when he was senior in high school is when the thing happened.
Okay.
This has gotten deeply personal already.
Yeah, it has because it's interesting stuff. But we always do that kind of stuff. So that's interesting. So. That's interesting because in a way, is your mom still alive? Do you mind me asking? Okay, so you haven't lost a parent, really. I mean, you never had that dad, but so you haven't lost. Your brother's still around, right?
Yeah, we're all here.
So it's very interesting because most of the guys we've talked to and my friend, et cetera, we do the co-host Jay, by the way, who will be back next week. We talk about that, what it's like to lose a parent and how that weird. It's suddenly. Suddenly you're like that. The buffer stuff is gone, and you're in real life, and there's no. It's like having a kid, where while it's happening, it's real big adult stuff. You know, I mean, you certainly know because you've had 4 now, and there are moments like that. There's no window dressing, nothing making it anything but it's go time. This is the real thing. So that's interesting. I had no idea. Okay, so
as you know well, for whatever it's worth, but whatever your relationships with your parents are, when you have your own kids, obviously it changes or whatever. But there is not a day that doesn't go by that I don't say, "How did my mother do this?" Oh. I have 4, and there are days when it just gets away from you so fast, and you cannot pull it back, and you just can't do it. She did it with 9. There were no iPads. There was no Mickey Mouse TV shows. In Petersham, we didn't have cable till long after I was out of there, actually. Cable didn't come until the 90s there. So you had the 3 networks, basically. Right. And then we could get a Springfield channel and a Providence channel. But there was, now, that said, there were plenty of things that went on in life then that don't go on now, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But every day I think to myself, how did my mother do it? I don't have any idea.
That is, remarkable.
I mean, her 8th kid, for example, Angel. I mean, that made it easier.
No, well, I assumed, obviously that's you, and that's definitely not true. But
that was true, actually.
I assumed, I guess you were the baby boy. But I assumed that, don't you think that moms have a different DNA? I mean, than dads? I mean, the patience that moms have just built in is unbelievable. Like, I think a lot of times, and maybe this is just...
They just have different buttons that got to be pushed, that's all.
They do, but, I mean, if you...
Get my wife watching This Is Us and then have the kid and do it as a game. Like, whatever her show is, but have your kid... Just go in and ask if you can have and watch them go. Like, they don't care if the Super Bowl gets interrupted, but we all have our buttons, and kids will find them, and then they will go... I'm just going to test this out for now, see how it goes. My oldest daughter loves to, let's just see what happens and then go, wow, I didn't know that was going to happen. But all right, we'll go from there. So women and mothers have it too. It's the old line from Scarface. I just know how to hide. Like, I feel like mothers pull that stunt a lot.
Oh, definitely. But I do think that when guys hear a kid, like, let's say kids screaming and making lots of noise, or let's say if guys hear a baby crying, not me, but lesser men want the crying to stop. Women get very worried about the baby a lot of times.
Well, we have 4 of our kids here right now, and one of them was just yelling, and we say, hey, whoa. There's no yelling here. Right. There's no one here.
Right.
But instinctively, we're just going to stop that. We're not going to have that. Of course, I'm sure they're yelling as we speak, but well, noise isn't our thing generally, right? Unless we're making it, we're not as into that. So, I agree with you there. We're cut that way.
So Petersham is a safe town? So
I don't live there now, but that's where I grew up. It was great. Loved it.
So you had a great, the idyllic childhood. You could climb trees.
My brothers and sisters did not agree.
They hated it?
Some did. There's 9 of us, so you're going to get a random sampling. But I loved it. It was awesome.
You could ride your bike around and walk into a neighbor's house. And
my mother would give us breakfast and say, there's the door, and I'll see you for dinner. And you were gone. We would play hours of wiffle ball, hours of frisbee baseball, hours of football. Then we play flashlight tag at night out in the woods with God knows what animals were sitting right next. Fine. We'll see you for bed. That's how it was then. You can't do that now, obviously.
Yeah. Doesn't that suck? I mean, we're...
No, it's just different. That's all.
You're just an even-keeled dude. I mean, you always kind of have been an even-keeled guy where, you could walk by a pluming smoke explosion and seem to be just nonplussed.
Well, I always, I just wrote a column for my local paper recently, and it's the only time the editor has ever said something to me, and it was, I don't think nonplussed means what you think it means. And I was wrong. I thought nonplussed meant I don't really care about it.
It doesn't?
It's a variation of that. It's not quite that. Whatever it's worth. We're in a newspaper. So
that's good to know.
I share that enlightening story with you. In my book, one of the reasons why I wrote a book is A, to challenge myself, B, to learn something for once. So this guy wrote about the Great Fire in Nantucket. One of the newspaper men there was talking about, what are we going to do to rebuild and whatever. Mm-hmm. And he kept talking about croakers. And I'm like, what the hell is croakers? And finally he explains it in one of his columns. But there was a large faction on Nantucket in 1846 that wanted to rebuild the town exactly like it was before the fire. And it was apparently a phrase then. I don't know why it went away, but I'm trying to bring it back. Mm-hmm. Croakers are people that want everything to always be like their great-grandfather had it, and it can never change, and we live the same lives as our ancestors. I try not to be that as a parent. My childhood was awesome. My kids also, however, don't need to chug Pixie Sticks periodically because we now know that sugar maybe isn't as great for you as what it was then. We don't have to understand that if you hold whipped cream a certain way, it can give you a little tingle and all these sort of things. So I try not to be a croaker. It was great for me. I'm interested in what this 2018, 2019, et cetera, does for my kids.
So do you think that, are you like your mother in your general nature, your manner?
No, not at all.
That's interesting. It's interesting because the only time I've ever seen you get excited, animated-wise, is listening to very bad heavy metal.
Is there such a thing? Let's start with that.
Cinderella.
No, I don't know. That's ridiculous, obviously. I mean, I got to assure you, during the Super Bowl last year, not this past one that the Patriots lost, but when the Falcons were up 28-3 at halftime, I can assure you I was pretty excited. And I can assure you, as always is the case with life, Lucy takes the football away. And the Falcons won't be in the Super Bowl for another 30 years.
So you must have been, were you very upset about that?
I wasn't overly pleased. I wasn't nonplussed about it. I'll put it to you that way, to use your incorrect definition of that word. What's funny about that, well, I'll get random, but I was at an all-Patriots Super Bowl party. They only invited me so that I could be the whipping boy.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I gave him $5 when I walked in or whatever. I hit the square for the first half of the game at the party. So not only did I have my Falcons jersey on, I then had to reach in and take $160 or whatever it was from these guys. And then I left because I realized this was only going to get worse.
Yeah, you don't want to.
So about 10 minutes later, my phone I start getting texts from people I don't really know because there's so many people at this party I was unfamiliar with, but they wanted to get back what I had been giving. So my phone,
of course.
In the beginning of the fourth quarter, I just turned it off face down. I don't want to see these. And I ended up deleting about 50 texts that I never read because I knew what they were.
Oh, yeah. Oh, obviously.
Not interested. I don't know you from Pittsburgh.
That's smart.
Who's acting like you're a Patriots fan for some reason.
We watched the 2003 ALCS Game 7 at a bar, obviously a high-octane evening with our friend of ours, our close friend who was a Yankees fan. And before Boone's home run crossed the fence, he was out of there. He got the hell out of Dodge. It was it's an interesting thing. But you don't drink. I
do not.
You've never really been a drinker ever.
Never.
Ever is it? Well, you don't have to out. But is this a Goudie thing or?
Not hardly.
Okay, it's just you. Why not?
I have 5 older brothers.
Oh, okay. So you.
As I told you, there are things you learn from your brothers, and you go, "That's the way to do it." And then there are things that you go, "Maybe I'm not going to go that route." So. There's a number of reasons. I liked, when I was a kid, I don't know why, but as a kid, I never understood I have to do it because I'm supposed to do it.
Yeah.
So I was the jerk kid that way, who would point out to kids, you're only drinking a beer because you think it's cool, but why is it cool? And then everyone would walk away from me.
Right.
Because they're like, who's the jerk? But I never got into it. I mean, I drank so much soda as a kid. I mean, like I could fill up the Charles River kind of volume. And I always said, why am I getting away from this? I like this. I don't need that. And I do see car accidents from that. So I never was interested. I just never was.
No interest in getting high.
No.
That's the difference.
Yeah,
well, although there's a sugar high too. There's something happening there.
I mean, that's for sure. Sugar is as much a drug as anything. And that one I've wrestled with over the years for sure.
Yeah.
I've been pinned by that one.
Isn't that
times.
Interesting? Can you imagine? Well, just imagine for years that our own government told us to be. You need to have some pasta. You need to.
They're doing it now. I mean, I'm fascinated by that. Again, as a historian, like in the 30s and 40s of the last century, like Baby Ruth, for example, they had a doll and it said NRG on it. This was the energy you need and your kids need to get through the day. Like they were literally pushing. You gotta have a Baby Ruth. You gotta get through the. And even when you get into like the 80s, Snickers really satisfies. Like when you're working on that construction site, you're dragging. You remember these ads?
Of course.
And the guy would rip off a Snickers and be like, I can do this job. And that's how they have always marketed this stuff. I mean, milk, it does a body good. Really? Does it?
Right.
Because I don't think it does, actually. I haven't drank milk in 30 years and I've had no problems. But most people will tell you that milk, it is scientifically proven that you need to drink milk for your bones.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah,
and then
think
pushing
so.
you on to bran muffins and all that whole.
But did you know, like, it's today, we're doing this on the 18th, St. Patrick's Day parade is outside. I mean, St. Patrick's Day was never St. Patrick's Day until Budweiser decided there's nothing associated with this holiday. We could probably take it over. And Budweiser's the reason why it is St. Patrick's. You know this, right?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the reason why it's on the 17th is St. Patrick died on the 17th. And I think it was like in the year 400 and something. For centuries, the way you did St. Patrick's Day is you had a meal and you sat down with Franciscan monks or whatever, and you just talked about the glory that was St. Patrick who spread the gospel to Ireland.
Yeah.
But there was this was not a party particularly. It was an homage to the great St. Patrick. Budweiser said, well, we'll make it a drinking party.
Right.
And America said, we like to booze it up on holidays. Right. And so we did it. Ireland never did this up until, I think it was the 90s.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
They still don't really, Ireland doesn't really do what we do. St. Patrick's Day is a 3-city thing. It's New York, Philly, and Boston.
Yeah.
And we're the reasons why.
Well, Chicago.
Now, but that Philly was New York had the first one, and then Philly made it the Eagles fan type thing to do. And now it is what it is that.
Yeah. But I think more with pushing people into white starchy sugars for health reasons is just incredible. The government mandated. I still have people saying that. Oh, you're still people saying that. Oh, you shouldn't eat meat. Can't have a steak every day and whatever, all this other stuff. And then pushing people onto carbs, and there's a religion just making kids fat.
Again, when the government was in the business of feeding people, when they used to run soup kitchens, or instead of giving you a card, they would actually give you food. What did they give you? Cheese. Government issued cheese. Who thinks that's a good idea? They used to give you butter. I mean, this powdered butter stuff that is like, oh, really? Wow, that's something. No, it's what you got. That's why you need it. It's called marketing. Marketing is responsible for everything.
So how did you like high school?
I went to prep school. So I went to public school until through 10th grade, sophomore year. But my public school at the time had lost its accreditation. No, it had.
Yeah.
My older brother, my brother Sean, it lost it. He ended up going to Kimball Union. Yes, one each. That's my daughter, Ella. Say hello,
Ella.
guys. So my brother Sean ended up having to go to private school. We went to Kimball Union up in New Hampshire. By the time I got there, my school had gotten its accreditation back, but that was a high school built for 700 people that had 1,600 at one time, and they were like, this isn't working.
Yep.
But so I ended up going to Kimball Union. It was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, not even close. And I
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's not even. Okay, my wife's listening. She's awesome, too.
Right.
Kimball Union changed my life forever.
Really? So what was it? Was it the learning? Was it camaraderie?
I was so scared going there because I knew I wasn't going to be able to cut it. And I thought, this is where the big boys play, and I'm not supposed to be here. And then I found out I could at least keep my head above water. And if you paid attention and you worked hard, you could actually do okay. And it was phenomenal. I would go back there in a second.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I drove up there 4 years ago, I think it was, in a snowstorm worse than the one we just had in New Hampshire. Now, the way I describe Kimball Union, my wife, who's from Dudley, Mass., you've probably never heard of it.
No.
It kind of sticks too, a little bigger than Petersham, but not by much. As we're driving to Kimball Union, we're about an hour outside of it in northern New Hampshire, and she turns to me and says, where the hell are we? And I said, we're about an hour from Kimball Union. That's how far north and how sticks it is.
Oh, so I'm sorry. I must have missed the part. It's a boarding school?
Yeah, prep school. Yeah.
Jeez.
It's right below Dartmouth. It was Dartmouth, still sort of is.
Did your mom work at the time?
She worked in the public schools in Athol. We went to Orange, the rival, but yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
He was an 8th grade English, was an 8th grade English teacher. Still is, because I still get the corrections every time I text or email.
Right. So see, that's interesting. So you really liked high school, and so that's why you wanted to go to college, I assume, because you like school. You're a school guy.
Yeah.
Did you know what you wanted to do in high school?
No, I still don't know what I want to do.
College? Okay. So,
but the interesting thing with me, and it's not interesting, but what happened to me going to prep school didn't happen to me in college. When I went to prep school, I knew I was in deep trouble. and I wasn't going to be able to hack it.
Yeah.
Because of that challenge, I excelled. I didn't get into Harvard, sons of bitches, pardon my French.
Right.
I ended up going to Hamilton, which is a great college, and it's fine, but it was way too easy. Kimball Union made college way too easy for me, and that's when I learned to loaf. So I did not take advantage of 4 years of college at all.
Interesting. So what was...
Because I don't drink anyway, but it was easy and boring, and I knew I could do well without much effort.
At school, at college?
Yeah, the Hamilton College is upstate New York, about 6 hours from here, but 5 hours from Petersham.
So you loafed. Was it fun? I mean, I assume at that time it's just parties and sports, right?
Neither. It was sports. I did radio there. That's how I got into the game. But
so why did you do radio?
Because
it was
they had a station there, a college station, WHCL 88.7 on your FM dial. And they said, does anybody want to do a sports show? And I'm like, yeah, I could do a sports show. So I did. And then I ended up I did play-by-play for a football, basketball, and a hockey team.
Jesus.
And they had a pretty good hockey team there at the time. And it was just fun. So we did that while we were there just to pass the time. But
so were you a huge talk radio fan growing up?
My brother, we had a family friend who was a huge talk radio listener, WBZ in Boston. He loved Jerry Williams, loved Gene Burns, a big Larry Glick fan. My brother, who I had to share a room with because there was 9 of us, to impress him, my brother used to have the radio on at night listening to Larry Glick. So when we saw that family friend, he'd go, hey, did you hear when Glick did whatever?
Of course.
So I heard it, but I mean, on those rare occasions when I got the room to myself, that radio was off. I wasn't like, I got to listen to Larry Glick. But ironically, my first radio job was as a part-time producer for what was then WHDH radio, and Larry Glick was there, and I ended up producing his show for the last 6 months of his broadcast career. Yeah. But
wow, so where did you see that the job was available? This is right after college.
So, and when I was in college, at some point you got to figure out a path. I had nothing. I didn't really care and wasn't thinking about it.
Didn't know what you were going to do in your life. It had no particular passion.
So my brother, who was living in Boston at the time, gave my resume to his wife's best friend's husband, who had worked at WHDH radio but was leaving. For some reason, he gave him my resume. I got a call from the program director at WHDH radio.
Hi.
And he said...
Yeah. Hang on.
You go get that. I'll finish the story. So this friend of my brother's wife gives the resume to the program director of WHH Radio, who calls me. I didn't know he had my radio. My resume. I didn't know why he was calling me. And he said, we just had several part-time producers leave. Would you be interested at all in working there? And I had no other plans, nothing lined up, no idea what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, whatever. I was a government major in college. So what does that do for you? Nothing. And I was, as I told you, I was just loafing. And so while I loafed, this guy called and I said, sure, I'll take the job. Not knowing what it was, being completely unqualified for anything, and not even knowing what he was looking for. I said, sure, I'll do it. And I ended up moving in with my brother because it was in Boston and I had no money, obviously, to my name. And so I moved in with him and I took the job and started there. And I started overnights, 3 or 4 nights a week. The job was, it wasn't overnights. The shift started at 5 a.m. and I would do an 8-hour shift. But because the tea stopped running at midnight, I had to take that tea in at midnight, then I would sleep at the station for 3 or 4 hours, and then I would start the shift at 5. And that's how it worked. So that's where we got started. And it was, as for me, everything that does how did you end up there? That's the one that's the strangest thing. I had no business ending up there. There was no monster.com or anything. I wasn't looking for radio jobs. That one ended up finding me, and I took it, and the rest is history.
All right, I shouldn't be so winded. Is that how you got into RKO or Howie Show?
Yeah, so RKO, same thing. I didn't have any interest in doing that, but the guy called me and I took it. So then what happened with Howie was RKO and HDH merged. There was a
American Radio or whatever that
it
was.
becomes American Radio, which became American whatever.
Yeah.
The guy that ends up taking over as the general manager had known Howie when Howie had been on RKO briefly, and the guy thought Howie could be something, thought they misread him and they were wrong to fire him, whatever. He comes in with guns blazing. That guy and me did not see eye to eye at all, and we were not going to happen. But what happened was I was producing the afternoon show at HDH. Janet Jagalian, who just passed away, may she rest in peace, was hosting it at that time. Terrible show. Yeah. Not because of her. The format was awful. I was just there. So this guy comes in, gets rid of that show. Howie, you're coming in. We're going to make you the afternoon guy and see if you can carry this radio station. In the meantime, that jerk kid there, he'll just screen the calls until I can get somebody in.
Yes.
But it was, and I didn't like Howie either. I was like, I don't want, because I liked Janet a lot and I wasn't happy that she got whacked. Anyway, I was there and I was going to be there for 2 weeks. Well, about a week and a half in, Howie catches wind that I used to, as a summer job, work for the state. And immediately he's busting me on air and I'm happily telling him what would, what Don't Kill the Job was like for us and how we would,
yes,
we knew the spots to hide.
How he's made his herald
and
bones
he was
out of
certainly
exposing
enjoying
the
that.
Hackorama.
And so it was a couple weeks, and the guy's like, all right, we're going to get, and he's like, he's fine. Don't worry about that. We'll deal with him later. And I just ended up there. And 12 years later, I was Howie's guy for that long a time.
So
I was never supposed to be.
But so you had no radio influence? Because my thing at that time, and I was listening to Howie and somebody else, and I think it was my brother was saying that the producer was a funny bastard. But we had not really heard that in Boston. That dynamic had
that was new. That was way new. There was a lot of problems with that too. We got into a big union issue.
I remember that. It was a little bit later.
We got yanked for a while.
Yep, and which was also even better for the show. The fact that you knew that you were under duress by union people, that you would speak and how it would hush you guys and say, you could get off. He didn't want any trouble. That was also just a very good time. But you love to, you're very good at the one-liner things and put downs and things like that. With Howie, that was perfect because it's good to soften him up and things like, and it also made the show younger. But is that something that you always did in your family? Is that how you survived the dinner table or whatever it was?
Yeah. That's big family stuff.
So did you
always now? I could text my brother right now and he'll give you some smart ass comment back. Always. We were just doing this morning actually. A lot of it's Trump related now, but because most of my family doesn't love him.
Yes.
So depending on the day, which one of us starts the thing. Yeah. So if Trump's having a good day, I'm the one that says, "Hey, fellas, haven't heard from you." And if Trump's having a bad day, they're all on me and blah, blah, blah. Our family split about 70-30 on this. And sometimes it gets ugly. Yeah. But anyway, our whole lives was always, we all had nicknames. We all had different things that would come up at various holidays that we were, those stories that had to come around because you did that. And my sister was just telling my wife another one about Chinese food dinner that had gone astray one night because of me, etc. So it's always busting balls. Right. And Howie, and that's where you became VB. Mm-hmm. And how did that come about? I don't think. I'm not kidding. Do you know? Do you know how many times I've been asked that in my life? I've been 11,000 maybe. Whatever the question is for you, you're not even close. It's just that I get asked that almost every day. Yeah. And I tell you the same thing every day. I don't know. No, there's got to be a reason. But the funny thing about that is Howie doesn't know how that happened. If you asked Howie how that happened, he'll tell you. But he's wrong about it. Yeah. But if he hears me tell you how it happened, he'll tell you that I'm wrong about it. Yeah. Both of the things happened, but it's not what he said. He would tell you there was a guy there, the guy that took over for him when he got fired from RKO, middays before he ended up back there. There's a guy named Tom Likas. Oh, yeah. So when the two stations merged, Likas was still there. They had a huge Christmas party in Boston. They rented out a thing above the Ritz-Carlton, and Likas had one too many beverages at that Christmas party, and later that night he got into a issue with his, I think it was his girlfriend, it might have been his fiance, whatever. Ended up in the paper. Lycus ended up in Washington State not soon thereafter, different job. Howie wanted the new company made aware of the incident because they didn't get along, but for some reason he wanted his producer to make that phone call. I didn't even know I didn't know what this was all about. Whatever. As I'm calling, they're like, well, who is this calling? And I started to say, my name is VB from W. And he gives me a shot and says, you're not calling from anybody, from anywhere, and you're nobody. Because I didn't know what the hell. And so, but anyway, that ends and he looks at me, the hell were you thinking? I'm like, the guy asked me. So I started to tell him. He will tell you forevermore now. That's when he said, you're so naive, you're just a VB. That didn't happen.
Oh, interesting.
What happened was there was a black supermodel at the time whose name was Veronica Webb. They asked if Veronica Webb could be on the show. She was promoting some charitable thing, whatever, and she was in town. Sure, of course she can come on. She comes in the studio. Howie and her, they do their interview. They plug the thing, whatever. I'm producing it, so I'm sitting on the other side of the glass. Veronica came in. She chatted for a while. Then they do the interview, and then they go on their merry way. So I'm a loudmouth 25-year-old kid. They leave. And I go back in the office. I'm telling everybody else, Veronica Webb was there. I swear she was checking me out or whatever. Talking stupid guy stuff. Howie comes in and kind of gives me a cuff upside the head. And what are you talking about? I'm like, are you serious? You didn't notice that she was clearly interested? And then he says, you wouldn't even know what to do with a woman like that. You're nothing but a... And as he says it, and whatever, he tells you this didn't happen, but this is what happened. As he says it, like you can see this light bulb not only go on over his head, but it gets so bright it pops. And so I knew within literally a second of those two words passing his mouth, that's either gone forever or I'm going to own that forever.
Right.
And the next words out of his mouth were, "That's what I'm calling you from now." And I knew he was.
So
I knew it already.
Before that, Doug?
Yeah. I don't even think he called me anything. Actually.
Yeah.
I don't know that he ever used my you, but I don't think he called me anything. There was another Kevin Straley was the other producer at the time.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, he was the first. He was the right hand man, and he was the brains behind it all.
Was he on the board?
If Straley wasn't there, Howie's show would have been very different. And Straley's much more responsible for that initial success.
He ran the board?
He did, yeah. And I was the phone guy.
Okay.
And when Straley moved up, I moved over. Butchie came in.
Okay.
And that was what some of us think was the heyday of. Yeah, Butchie was a character on the show.
Yeah. So that's interesting because part of the show and part of the reason why you had so many people emulating it was the swagger of the show and the smart-ass attitude. The show had a smart-ass attitude. You had a smart-ass attitude. The drops were smart-assy. You know, if it was animals getting shot or whatever it was.
Yeah, no, we did a lot of stuff then. We would get in trouble for now.
Oh yeah,
we also
the Scondress.
I always had an issue with that, totally honest with you. There was a lot of stuff you had to do back then.
They still run that. I can't believe
Howie knows this, but one of the things it was like Trump, where Howie would sort of test you and you had to make sure. But he had a huge thing about, they used to do a lot of Operation Squeezes in Boston. He would make us call people that got arrested in those. Yeah. And the deal was if you would go on with Howie as Mr. X and talk about being arrested, then he wouldn't out you. Otherwise, he was going to use your name and address on the air.
Yeah.
And I to this day, I know I've got some time in hell for making those phone calls because I never liked that at all. But I couldn't find a way out of it because that was his thing. He loved doing it.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
There was some stuff we didn't do. We did that we weren't loving. There was other things that I definitely wanted to do that we got reined in on. And then there were some things that got us into trouble and some things that somehow got by and whatever. But there was all of that.
So, actually, when I got to RKO and I was, nobody was running the station, so they told me to run it. I had just been the receptionist. So you can imagine how excited I was.
Well, for a long time, we didn't know you were running it. I mean, Howie certainly didn't know.
Oh, no.
Because it's not like you went in there and said, "Hey, Howie, new sheriff in town." You were just like, no, here's your check and cupcakes are in the lobby.
Literally, I'd be getting cupcakes. But my only legacy that I love is that I reauthorized the use of the Scondress, which is unbelievable to think that I don't think people.
That was Straley. Straley did that.
Was that? That's brilliant. It's funny because
Straley's here. I haven't seen Kevin in 15 years at least, but the thing, Straley and I were very different. I was much more smart-assy. I always wanted to push the envelope. I always wanted to go crazily where no one... Straley was much more reserved, but he was much more clever too. And he would listen to a press conference and hear stuff you'd never...
Right.
He would go... And that was one of them.
It's
None
a sign
of us...
of a great producer.
He's like, I got a great thing here. And he came up with that. I never liked it, but he did, and it became a signature thing. And they were still using that up until very recently.
They are using it. They use it,
which I find unbelievable to me.
Want to know what that is? It's a sound effect of it's literally a guy coughing
once.
Right.
Straley doubled it.
Right.
But it was only once. He wasn't even. He was clearing his throat. He did the thing, and Straley doubled it up, and then made it a sound effect for something.
For a man fornicating, essentially, is. Yeah, I mean, in the 90s, our friend, me and my friends would make the noise to each other. Guys, of course, is another way of calling your friend something. You know, it wasn't good for society, but man, it was fun. What a fun time. And did he ever get suspended? You guys ever get in trouble? I saw all the personal files.
No.
The only thing I saw in there was an evaluation, and you complained about Howie's feet smelling in your evaluation.
I did get in trouble once for one of those. I didn't realize that the company took those seriously. I thought we all realized this is a joke. So this was one of the big things that solidified my thing with Howie. I didn't know it at the time, but Straley told me because he ultimately moved up.
Yep.
And he told me that the first time I did one of those evaluations, it was like, what do you like most about working here? And I was like, the free bread on Tuesdays, because they had it in the office. And I just put a lot of answers like that. I honestly thought we all knew this was nothing. But it turned out not only was it not nothing, they were serious about it. And Straley said he got called in to explain why I'm around if this is what I think of the company. Oh, I never got asked about it.
Oh, that's so.
I thought everybody
radio,
knew me and knew that I'm this guy and I don't take things too seriously and whatever. Howie knew about it and thought it was hilarious. Straley didn't, because Straley said you were pretty close to being fired.
Incredible.
Who knows what's true and whatever.
Was it literally for the boss's feet smelling?
No, this one. This wasn't that one. There was like 7 or 8 questions on it, and thing you like the most, thing you dislike the most.
We're gonna tell him we'll be there in 11 minutes.
Tell him he's doing awesome.
Or we can bring him in if you want.
Or you can tell him to sit. You can sit in, yeah, but go get those guys though.
Yeah, can you get
Bring
everybody?
him down.
Tell them to walk and not to be loud.
Yes.
Yeah, you can bring them all in.
So whatever on that. I'll tell you a quick thing with Howie though. Like the reason why that I've always said the reason why that worked is we didn't take ourselves that seriously.
Right.
Insofar as people don't take themselves seriously. We obviously do, and there was good, bad, and ugly with that show. But we somehow got Joe Kennedy to come on, even though we used to do a thing called Wizard of Oz. We just break up. God, I could, and still go right. My mind goes right back to being in a studio, listening to Joe Kennedy speeches and trying to pick out a 30-second soundbite where he went 20 times. Of course. Awful. Trying to count those without digital abilities to stop tape.
Ooh.
Was really tiresome.
Oh, I can imagine.
But when Joe Kennedy briefly decided to run for governor before his brother skied into a tree and died and the babysitter and all that stuff, he said, I got to make the peace with Howie or else I'm going to have problems. And he decided to come in. Well, I called him, got his guy and whatever, and said, hey, look, here's an idea. I have this tape of Howie doing Oz. Would Joe like to do the Howie Wizard of Oz and turn the tables?
Ooh.
And he was very reluctant because he doesn't know me at all.
Right.
And he assumed that this was all a setup to screw him. And I got it totally, but I said, look, I'm just telling you, this could be funny if you want to roll the dice. I said to his guy, here's what I will do. Here's what you can do to me if I'm screwing you. Mm-hmm. He said no. Then when they got there, Joe came in and said, do you have that thing? Let me hear it.
Right.
And we ended up doing it on the air. Howie didn't love it, as it turned out. But I always thought like that was the stuff that we did get away. I didn't have to run it by Howie. He trusted me enough to do it. And even though he didn't love that, he got what it was all about.
Yes.
And we would do that on a weekly basis. Back then, that was now that's everybody and whatever. But back then, that was pretty darn unusual.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fact that program directors did not have knowledge of that when it was running on the air was very unusual. And that's always, people that love or don't love Howie, I always use that to explain to them, here's who he was and why you need to understand why he did make a difference in this industry. That was not done. It was not.
Yeah. And did you, were you ever worried about being close to somebody who was so reviled by a good part of the Commonwealth? Or did you like it?
Not really. I wasn't. We used to joke all the time about, I'm not going to let Howie eat the food first. I'm not going to start his car for him or whatever. But no, when I look back on it now, we did do a couple of things and participate in some things that I should have been concerned about. And
like what? I do remember.
We went through South Boston one time and he was pointing out some stuff, but then somebody did sort of give him a look like, hey.
A look you don't want.
And we
South
were
Boston.
laughing about it and we were joking about it, but I'm like, as I look back on that particular one, had the tire blown out, there may have been a problem. I mean,
were you broadcasting from a trolley or something?
We weren't on the air then. We were driving back from a thing and we went through there. And this was before the phones and the MapQuest. Howie has always been a horrible driver with a bad sense of direction.
Oh, interesting.
And he knew that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So let's just go let's get there, even though I shouldn't be in here. And that type of stuff on rare occasion happened. There was a couple of guys we had in the studio that were like, Scondrus filled in for him.
Yeah, I know.
And I had to produce that show. That was the most challenging ever.
Yeah, later,
very weird stuff, but at the time, no, I wasn't worried about it. But there was I never thought someone was going to blow up Howie's car or whatever.
Right.
Maybe they were. I mean, when I saw Weeks' thing on 60 Minutes, I said, I was working for him then, and I could have been walking with him in theory if that was real. And I saw Weeks and asked him, and I said, how he doesn't believe that? He goes, I don't really give a what he believes. I know what was real. So whatever. I don't know.
But generally, I mean, it's almost like the Trump. Well, it's not quite, but in this state, it is. I mean, but just walking down the street, did it ever bother you to think that your neighbors would ever, probably think you're what an evil bastard he works for Howie?
Never. The only thing that ever happened, I always tell this story to people that care, but I was at a Supercuts once in Framingham, and the woman's talking and whatever, and she's like, "So what do you do for work?" And I used to always say, when I worked for Howie then, I used to always say I was in sales. Just let's not go there because it's a 50-50 as to whether. And once you have it happen once that they don't love him, you realize. So my mother didn't love him at all and did not want me saying that.
Yes.
But at that Supercuts, for some reason, I said, I work in radio. And she said, what do you do? I said, I work for Howie Carr. And the scissors stop and she looks up and I see in the mirror her face go white.
You.
Yeah, and I realized, what the hell?
Yeah.
She doesn't ask me anything else. She just starts talking. And it turned out that her brother was some sort of elected official that Howie had written a column about, and the guy ended up losing his gig.
Yes.
He was now in New Hampshire, wasn't doing real well. And I was like, man, the hair looks great. No need to cut another inch. And it was really awkward. And I never, after that, you always do the old. I mean, I remember that time saying something. I mean, I work with him. I don't really know him. I just push the buttons. He's there. I don't talk to him. And you tried to get out of it. Rarely did that happen. I mean, I'm amazed with the remotes that we used to do based on the feelings that people have for him that there wasn't more confrontation.
Yeah.
But there just wasn't.
Yeah. Same here. But, there's, I guess crossing that line for people can be tough. I'm surprised he just hasn't been cold cocked a bunch of times. He's a big guy.
No, I agree.
Was a big guy. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, one time we had it's funny. We called the cops because there was a death threat when I was with Michael Graham, and there was a death threat. The guy called and said that he was going to kill me, but then go and shoot other people. Oh no, he said he was going to shoot me when I left a message. But I was worried that he would miss me and shoot another producer, and I knew it. So we called the cops, and we had the cops come in, and the cop said, I got to tell you, the way you guys talk, I'm not too surprised. Jesus, man.
Well, a lot of people wouldn't know it. I did whatever. This again, it was Straley's idea, not mine. But I then owned it. But the Chump Line, which Howie still does, the recorded voicemail message service, that was not done ever in Boston radio.
Right.
Howie got that from Stern. Stern, every once in a while, Stern at that time would play some recorded messages that came into the show. It wasn't a regular feature, but he would do it. Howie heard it and said, that should be a regular feature.
Yeah.
My big fight with him was I wanted that random every day during, so you never knew when that was going to be.
Yeah.
Straley was like, no, it's got to be at a set time. It originally was at 3, and then it became 5 o'clock.
Exactly. When
and he wanted a set time for sales purposes. I wanted it random so that you had to listen to the show if you wanted that thing. And I lost that one. And it makes sense looking back on it. But anyway, I wouldn't say it was daily, but on an average week, you would get 5 or 10.
Yeah.
We just never took that stuff seriously.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have. I don't know. I mean, some of them were pretty. We would always play them like, oh, here's your latest one. And we'd either laugh or not laugh. But they weren't joking sometimes. But you just didn't think about it.
Yeah. I guess you really can't. So, I mean, at any time during the, did you must have, first of all, I've never been, one time we got ratings, but did you see the Arbitron ratings go up and say, holy Jesus, this is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, to be part of a success and then to be number 1 for the time slot.
Yeah, no, I remember that day when it happened, when it used to be quarterly, you wouldn't have any indication what they were going to be, and then it came in, and he was one in all day on all demos.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, it wasn't as crazy a concept for an AM station to have that, but now forget it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, I remember salespeople bringing in champagne. He lit up the cigar in the studio, even though there was fire codes.
Yeah.
I can remember that day pretty well because that was a big, big deal. And I had been HDH then into RKO with some shows that obviously were not that.
Yes.
And it was not nothing. It was cool to be a part of that.
So were you still didn't have the broadcasting bug, even though you were in broadcasting?
Oh, no, I had it then. Yeah, no.
Okay. You were
Howie changed that. I didn't, because I didn't know it could be that. I've always thought, like, if you ever saw the movie Good Morning Vietnam, I'm dating myself.
Of course, Adrian Cronauer.
Radio mostly was Bruno Kirby in the 80s and then into the 90s.
Right.
And you had to, and it was very predictable and very stilted, and we pick one topic and we just beat it to death. And Howie was not that at all.
No.
We minimum 4 topics, 4-hour show. You could do any kind of crazy stuff and whatever. I just didn't know that existed. Yeah. Once we started that, and I realized you could do what me and my brothers had been doing our whole lives, bus balls, crack wine.
Yes.
I said, this isn't too bad.
Yeah. Well, and also,
and I was in on it.
Well, not only wasn't too bad, but it's also, it was technically a conservative voice, but 4 hours of having a great time.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was laughing in the show, and the show was laughing. And you mentioned Stern had the.
I'll tell you the first one I ever did that I really was proud of. I got him to do, it's March Madness now, but so why don't we draw up brackets and we'll do what we call the Howie Carr Tourneo Champions. Pick topic. We'll come up with 16 of them. And we'll just have callers vote them off. The first one we did was for, I think it was Women on TV or something. Again, back then you did that. Second one we did was my list, and it was dictators. It was the Tourneo champion is the greatest dictator in the world. And I remember putting like Steinbrenner on there. Steinbrenner versus Pol Pot.
Right.
And I can still remember the call, and I can still remember who did it. It was a guy named Lyman. It got to Stalin versus Pol Pot in the Final Four. Howie says, Lyman from Boston, you're next. Who do you vote for? And he says, well, if you're going for slugging percentage, I think you got to go Pol Pot. But if you're going for average, Stalin's got to be the guy. I remember, I can hear him saying it. And I remember thinking that was, and I'm the only one that would ever care about something like that.
Right.
But I thought that was the epitome of unbelievably perfect talk radio.
Yeah.
We were doing something that was nonsensical that no one else in the world would think to do. The host was all in on it and was literally taking calls on whether Pol Pot or Stalin was a better dictator. And the caller came up with a way to break that down that I was never, ever going to think about. And he didn't stumble or hesitate at all. And then this was before mic drop was a thing. And then he just hung up. And I thought, man, this is perfect. This is unbelievable.
Perfect. And did you coach him on when you screened the call? Did you get the line out
I just said, Lyman, you're going to do the thing? And he said, yeah. And I said, all right, you're coming up in 3 calls and whatever. And when he went, he was ready. And he nailed that. And he came up with that line. And I can never think, when I hear Paul Pott, which isn't very often, I can never not think of that guy saying, well, if you're talking slugging percentage, you got to go Paul Pott. Because it was that was like a perfect moment in time. Howie would never remember any of that. Straley wouldn't remember. I don't even know if it was Straley or Butchie at that time. I think it was Straley.
Well, that's also very good call screening, too, which is something that went by the wayside. By the time I got to Howie, the call screener at that point was not screening calls anymore.
That's a sort of a lost art. I mean, there was a time where that's how I got started, where you really would work a call to make sure that when they were on, they were ready and they understood how this was going to. You don't get hey, you need to turn your radio off from the host, because that would be like a fine. Then they would be on you, and you knew that was a comment on your professionalism if that had to happen. So it didn't happen. Those days are long over. You can have it turn. Ella is a lot like her father. She enjoys a microphone. Owen, not as much. So we'll get there. Be patient. Be patient. Say, what's up, Big Tom?
What up, Big Tom?
Hi,
Owen. That's Owen. That's my, how old are you, Owen? How old are you? You 4?
Noah.
That's right. He's 4 now, and Ella's 7.
Sure. Say
Sally,
hi, Sally
is also.
Hi.
Sally, you're 7, I believe, right? Sally Shattuck. And we got James hiding back there in his bow tie as well.
There?
She's right here.
Oh, great. That's great. Sally, can you close the door, please, for me? Okay, so then when did you want to do your own show?
Fast forward. I end up doing the night show overnights 10 to 1 at RKO. They decided they were going to do something.
You had done some fill-in with the 2
I'd
chicks
been filling in with Howie. First with Howie.
Yep.
And sort of ultimately became his fill-in. Although the first time I ever did it, I lost my voice halfway through it. I was so nervous. It was literally like a broadcast news thing.
Yeah.
But did enough time. So I ended up... Be patient. I ended up replacing Alan Combs, who at the time was the partner of Sean Hannity on Fox News. Hannity and Combs was the show.
Wait a second. You replaced Alan Combs where?
On WRKO. Alan Combs had a radio show, and he was on there, syndicated.
Yep.
They decided to do away with that, and they put me on.
Mm-hmm.
About 3 months later, Hannity knocks me off.
Right.
I took Combs out, and then Hannity takes me out. And Hannity and Combs were partners. But the Iraq War happened. And so the boss said, we got to have Fox News on at night. And it was Hannity. And so I got bumped. When this was the first Gulf War. When that ended, they put me back on. Mm-hmm. And I had a show called The Pleasure Pit, VB's Pleasure Pit, which went on for a while, which was even more just loose, free flowing out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was just a fun time show.
Sometimes it was terrible, and it was good, bad, and the ugly. Depending on the day, you would get one of those. But it was an awesome training round.
And that is And so I assume that you didn't get a pay bump for any of that stuff because you were making union pay by then, so it didn't matter.
For what I was doing fine then, but it wasn't much.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking of Intercom. If it's the Intercom, I know. They were always.
I wanted the show. I didn't want this. It wasn't a thing.
Right.
There was it wasn't even negotiated. Yeah. Actually, I didn't have a contract, which is how I ended up at TV because they forgot to give me a contract.
Right.
For that show.
Oh, really?
Had they, I wouldn't have been able to go to TV. Yeah.
Wow. And you got
when I got the TV gig, I went in and gave him my 2-week notice, and he's like, "What's this? You can't give just 2 weeks notice. You have a show." I said, "No, I can. I don't. I'm going to take this job."
Yeah.
He said, "Well, I'm going to have to pull up your contract then." And I said, "Well, I don't have a contract. I'm an hourly employee, technically."
Ooh.
And that was it. I gave a note. I said, literally, this will be my last day. That was all it said. And that is what it was.
Wow.
But the way that happened, you'll be interested in. I ended up at HDH Radio ultimately because my brother gave a resume to somebody that I didn't know he did. And I ended up getting that job. I ended up in Howie only because I was in the show that they canned to bring in Howie, and they needed somebody to screen the calls.
Oh, exactly.
The boss did not like me at all. Right. I'm not kidding about that. Yeah. John McGuire was his name. He'll tell you. I know we got to be friends, and I talked to him recently. He couldn't stand me. But I ended up there, and it worked out well. Yeah. I ended up at TV because about 40 people turned down the job that I ended up taking.
Right.
Jerry Callahan was the guy they wanted, and Jerry wanted the job up until he found out what the salary was. And
Wait, which job? TV?
at Fox, yeah.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you. And there was a series. Browdy was up for that job for a long time. And Browdy, they thought, was going to get the job. And then I don't know why that didn't happen, but it didn't.
And as a kind of exterior stand-up personality.
Yeah. Well, they didn't know what they wanted that job to be. They just knew they wanted some sort of radio attitude with it.
Oh.
Because so many people turned it down, they sort of had stopped worrying about that. Jody Applegate, who was the female host of what became the Fox 25 Morning News, she wanted to do a few more test runs and just keep the flavor of the show going. So she asked me if I would come in just for these test runs, just to at least show, until we can find who that radio guy is, can you just sit in and a couple minutes, guys, and then we'll, thank you and give you a cake and you'll be on your way. And I literally thought it was a lark. I said, I want to see the inner workings of a TV show. Okay, a studio. So I went in and did a couple of tapings. I can still tell you the very first one was about Tenet sends a missile into a chicken shack to ostensibly take out Saddam Hussein. And they said, so do you think we got him? And I said, of course we got him. We don't send missiles into a chicken shack and not get the guy we're...
Right.
That was my take. It was completely wrong.
Right.
We found out the next day that
Hussein?
This was Hussein.
Okay.
We found out the next day he had left there 2 hours before they hit it.
Yes.
We had just missed him.
Yes.
But my big great take was that of course we got him.
Yeah.
And this is a great day for America. And I was dead wrong.
But you have to have a take, and that's the huge thing, right?
I guess. But it wasn't about the take. It was about, could you have a camaraderie with these other people?
Right.
And could you fit and could you drive a conversation or whatever? And they realized after several of those that he's not the right guy, but this concept is what we're trying to get towards.
Yes.
So just have him record a few more of these while we work on that. Then we'll get the right guy in. Is basically how.
Right.
And over time, again, I was the wrong guy in the right place. And they just started to go, well, nobody else seems to want to take this on. Maybe we'll have him do it. And it was a mistake for 6 months. It was a big mistake for 6 months.
Yeah, and so I think one of the early ones I saw was you just outside of the Super Bowl. The Duck Boat Parade. That was probably early on for you. So were you nervous getting into TV?
Oh, yeah, very much so. I'm not kidding. For 6 months, it was a big mistake by them. And I assumed I was going to, at the end, almost every Friday, I was like, I can't believe I got another week in.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming when I go in on Monday, they're going to say this is over.
Yeah.
I did find out later that they had those conversations.
Oh, Jesus.
There was one woman that fought to keep that from happening.
Yeah.
But there was she said, you got to be patient with this thing. And
that must have been stressful.
It was odd.
Ugh.
The marathon, we started in the fall. It wasn't until the marathon that I had that sort of moment where I might actually hang in there. And they did a live shot there, and I banged on the door of a guy that had just gone into the porta potty, and I sort of interviewed him through the porta potty. Just a guy. They were like, "Can you fill 2 minutes?" I'm like, "Not really," but they're like, "We need you to."
Yeah.
And that spontaneous thing happened. And when I got back, they were like, "That was kind of crazy, quirky. What was that all about?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Huh?" We didn't think anything of it when it happened. Yeah. And they were like, well, whatever you did, do more of that.
Yeah.
And that sort of started it.
Okay, we'll start to wrap it up here in a moment. We're gonna have to do a part 2. Obviously, you're gonna
have to do one with Ella. That's for sure.
For the part 2. So get into TV, and did you fall in love with that job?
Yeah.
Or once again,
we had a great group there.
Right.
We always talk like we're that minor league baseball team.
Yes, and that was Gene Levanchi,
Gene, Doug Meehan, Jody Applegate, Kim Kerrigan, Anquetta Jameson was there.
Q,
yep.
Right.
Who is now in the medicinal marijuana business.
Is she really?
You'll have her on a podcast soon.
Oh, that's great.
She's awesome. We just had a great group. Cindy Fitzgibbon was. Most of us weren't supposed to be there. Gene was a very late hire. They didn't know who the man was going to be.
Gene was
I got hired first, and then they said, "What do you think of Gene?" And I was like, not much. But boy, did they make the right call there? I mean, Gene was absolutely the glue that held it all together.
Yeah,
still is. But Cindy was a temporary. They were going to find the right weather person. It wasn't her. Lemanowitz, who was there, didn't want to wake up early. And so I think they thought at some point they were going to get Kevin to do it.
Yeah.
So again, until then, Cindy, I think Cindy, I'm talking way out of school now, but I don't think Cindy even had a contract when that started.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting that, had it been meticulously planned, maybe it wouldn't have been as good.
I'm a big fan of organic, and you got the best thing they ever did, and Greg Kelly, who was the guy that put it all together, was he let that, when he did it, he said, I will eat this for 6 months if you guys can find something.
Yeah, yeah.
And then in 6 months, he said, you failed me. We're going to do it this way. And when he left that meeting and said that to us, 3 of us really looked at each other and said, we know this is right. It just has, we gotta hang in there. If we can hold him off is what happened.
Right.
And 3 months later, he said, I told you it would work if you did it my way. And we never had changed.
Okay.
It just needed time to percolate.
Yes.
And it did.
And you also fell in love with a coworker at the time.
I did. She wasn't there then. She came a couple years later, but. And I ended up marrying a woman. I met my wife there, and these 2 children, among others.
Did your wife? Of that. I assume you have no game.
Really? Now we're gonna do this now? Of course I don't.
Right.
That's your part 2. Is that?
Yes, and we'll get into that. And I assume so. Your wife picked you.
Yeah.
Yes,
very
and made
much
the decision.
And made it happen.
Yes,
too.
I'm familiar with it.
I said a couple of really dumb. I'm not. Yeah. She'll tell you this is fact, but I tried to blow that in many ways, and so only because she is so stubborn did that not happen.
Yeah, and you had no business. It's better to just in that case. And people say this, people too. But anyway, the one very last thing. Could you do a normal job now?
Yeah.
PR communications. What would you do?
I'm like the guy in Spinal Tap. I think I could sell shoes. What's your size? Are you an 11? No, I mean, anybody who tells you I can only do this is not real imaginative. There's a million things we can do, and you could do it too. I mean, anybody can.
Could and
I'm
maybe
doing it now.
Quickly.
Did you ever?
I know.
I'm not joking. Whether you think I'm good at it or not, fine. You obviously quit on it, so you don't think I am. But I did write a book. If you asked me 5 years ago if I would ever write a book, I would say, no. So I did do that, and it's a great big world out there. There's a lot of things you could do. I could see you working at the Wynn Casino one of these days.
Oh, I would love to. You
I
kidding
know,
me?
So
I would
of course.
I would do. Yeah, I would love to. I miss. There's parts of hospitality that I miss. Most I don't, but there are parts that I do miss. All right, so let's tell everybody what the book is again, and next time we'll talk. We'll go deep into the book. We will. I promise.
You only read like 3 or 4 pages.
My wife reads to me. I don't like.
Come over here, Ella.
It's on.
Come on. Here, Ella, you're going to do the plug. Come here. Over here. Come over here.
My wife reads to me. I don't read books. My wife reads to me.
Well, why did she stop reading that?
Because we stopped. We haven't taken a long car trip. We will in June.
Tell everybody what Daddy's book is called. Is this one of Shannon's kids?
Your own daughter hasn't read the book. By the way, we're overrun with our kids. By the way, if you're wondering what's going on and why we're doing this.
Thank you.
Ack and Ashes.
Did Daddy spend a lot of time working on that book?
Yeah, he took 5 months.
Was there times where you would come down to the computer and say, Dad, get off the computer already?
It's on Amazon, Ack and Ashes.
Ack and Ashes, yeah. It's a Nantucket's Great Fire of 1846. Just a story of...
Yes.
Nantucket's Great Fire. And we have that book.
Yes, you do, Sally. I gave it to you for your
awesome.
7th birthday, I believe.
It's been your birthday already.
You can get it on Amazon.
I feel like we got way too almost spiritual here.
My daddy is doing another book about Petersham.
I know, but it's good. It's good. I mean, it's good to have a little bit of substance. That way,
can you tell Tom what kind of daddy?
That way, you can justify the time away.
He's a great daddy because he gives me a lot of stuff.
What did you get yesterday? On St. Patrick's Day? I'll give you a hint. You drank it.
A Shamrock Shake.
Ooh.
From McDonald's and Happy Meals.
Oh yes, here we go. That is a great daddy move.
So I'll be honest with you, I don't eat sugar anymore.
And he got me so many toys.
If I were to go back, I do think I would start with a Shamrock Shake.
With what?
A Shamrock Shake.
Yeah.
Ella finished hers, but she brought it home. I put the container on the counter so that I could just periodically take a whiff of it. Those things are unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, they're awesome.
They're just totally a crack adult stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, McDonald's.
My wife did the discourtesy of looking up the caloric information.
Oh, what?
I know.
There's
and
no
it was
calories
like, man,
or sugar in that shake. That is made of actual plant.
It's
Yes.
unbelievably phenomenal. But so like, for example, and the other thing, this is my, when I meet God, everyone's like, oh, that'll be the greatest. No, I have some issues. I need some answers. Why did the chocolate frosted flakes only get invented after I was no longer a kid? Why were they not around when we were kids?
Well,
why did these new chocolate Lucky Charms not exist when in the 80s? I might have had some fun with those. Yeah. And now I can't.
We gotta talk about this. So you lost a lot of weight, by the way, by just
I had, but now it's getting away.
Be simply stopping eating sugar. That was it.
Yeah.
You don't even exercise. Who doesn't exercise? Just you.
And yet you do, but you eat sugar. One of us.
I know.
It's not hard. You could do this shit. When I come back, I'm telling one of these days I am going to lock you in on I could drop 50 pounds on you, no problem. But you got to have some willpower.
Go ahead.
My daddy is great because one time when I came back from school, my friend from school has aqua balls. She used to, and then my dad got me aqua balls, which I loved, and it was Disney Princess, and we put more water in it so it would stay, and they're mostly water, and because my dad is handsome, a genius, and the best person in the universe.
And funny, right?
And hilarious.
Good girl, Sally. That is all organic.
I'm happy she said that, so she will eat now tonight. Because like Kim Jong-un, you use food as a way to make the women do what you want.
That was completely organic and off the cuff from my daughter. All right, so the book is Ack and Ashes. He is Doug VB Goudie. You can get him at WRKO.com every morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We've been overrun by the kids. Oh my God.
Attaboy, Owen.
All right. You can get us at
Okay, you never.
You did?
Have anything.
All right.
Play us off, kids, because I don't think we're stopping them now.
See you later. I should have did more reading.
And my dad's awesome. Yeah. And my dad is so strong.
Yes,
but
true.
Mommy, don't get all about the Benjamin.